2006 was the worst year of my life. And one of the reasons I got through it is that I trained seriously at failure every day as a kid. So I had a kind of psychological muscle memory to fall back on when things got really bad. And by training at failure, I mean training as a figure skater. Falling thousands of times as you learn a new jump does teach a certain kind of resilience, the ability to get up, as this brief promotional spot from US Figure Skating puts it.
Your alarm clock at 5 a.m. Your new school. Your first date. Your high school drama. Your nemesis. Your first job.
Hey.
Your voice.
Come on.
Your future. If you can handle ice, you can handle anything. Get up.
Get up. But I dislike this video a lot. And the reason is because it implies that we can conquer failure. That if we fall enough times, we master the double axel, and we don't fall on it anymore. That having stood up to the mean girls once, we never hesitate to do so in the future. It's as if being a responsible, healthy person who makes good life choices is this hard to acquire but discrete skill, like a difficult jump. And once you have it, you just have it. But life is not like that. And this image from the brilliant webcomic Ali Brosh marvelously illustrates the absurdity of thinking that it is. If you can't read that, she's pointing to a trophy and says, "That right there is my ability to be responsible. I won it when I was 25. A well-lived and reflective life involves striving always to be one's best, but also recognizing that we will never fully live up to that ideal. That's what I learned from the other component of figure skating, which has since been eliminated: compulsory figures. This is how the sport got its name in English. You literally etched shapes, figures, onto a blank sheet of ice. My title slide showed one example, the paragraph bracket. Two perfect circles with a counter-rotational turn at the top of each. And here's Scott Hamilton skating one in 1984. So this is what you did. You're on a blank sheet of ice, and you raise your hand. The judges, by the way, are standing about 8 feet away from you, so it's terrifying. You can hear a pin drop, and you push off.
Carefully mapping out where the figure will lay, raising his arms to indicate to the judges where the circles will fall. Remember, this is a two-circle figure with a turn at the top of each circle, and they must be exactly placed. He pushes off, makes the turn at the top, you can hear the sound of it, and completes the first circle, changing of his edge and riding into the second circle, at the top of which must be the second turn. And remember, it must be directly opposite the first turn. He has to keep his speed and his flow going. And as he completes the first tracing, he now steps off on an inside edge this time to make the second print. This is called a tracing, and it must be exact. Look at how he must twist and turn in order to keep his eye over the edge so that he can skate exactly onto the first print. Everything must work in sync here, and he must be steady. He can't have any wiggles or wobbles. In the third tracing, Scott goes back to the right foot. Once again, he traces the print exactly. The precision must be extraordinary. The judges not only inspect the print itself, they also mark him on how he skates the figure, his carriage, his flow, his smoothness, the steadiness of the edge, the lean of the body. Here he's about to start the last tracing. Look at the lean on the inside edge, and here the turn, very quick and precise. At this point, he simply cannot let down on his concentration, but must keep tracing, maintain the speed, and keep the turns complete and clean. In the silence of the ring, he finishes the figure.
I loved the introverted, meditative quality of figures. But they trained you in failure because human beings are not compasses. Scott's figures were excellent. Without them, he would have lost the gold medal in 1984 to Brian Orser. But they never looked quite like the diagram in the rule book. All you could do was approach asymptotically an ideal that remained just out of reach. Failure was baked into the discipline. As training in failure, figures and free skating were almost perfectly complementary. Failures in free skating are obvious and can be really painful. Google worst skating wipeouts if you dare, but don't say I didn't warn you. But failure is not just a discrete, seemingly catastrophic event, like falling on a jump at the Olympics or not getting your dream job or whatever. Failure is also an existential condition of life. The reality that we will never skate a perfect figure, that we will never fully embody our own ideals. That might sound terribly depressing, but I don't find it so, and I don't think you should either. Because anything without at least a whiff of failure is perfect. And as anyone who has studied Latin knows, perfect means finished, complete, in the past. But my work, my relationships, and my life are imperfect, incomplete. They extend into the future. The alternative is tedium at best and death at worst. So the analogies between figures and life have taught me a lot. But so too has this important difference between them. Doing a figure meant trying and failing to reproduce the diagram in the rulebook, someone else's standard. But the fact is that we're all imperfect, even those who write the rulebooks. And that means that we don't have to adhere to those scripts imposed from outside as we chart our own life's path. This is the perspective I wish I had had back in 2006 when my life was falling apart. The boyfriend I loved so deeply and assumed I would marry, another English graduate student, turned out to be having an affair, and he dumped me one night as I was grilling asparagus. My parents' apparently storybook marriage was also collapsing for reasons I still don't entirely understand. My mom fell into a deep depression, and as a heartbroken grad student 3,000 miles away, I was powerless to help. But at least I was still a good academic, I kept telling myself desperately. I could still get my dream job and leave all this horrible Berkeley drama behind. Nope, I was the losing finalist at 5 schools that year, which meant adding professional and financial insecurity to the personal and familial. This was all like falling on every single jump in your program and a spin, because, why not? But temporal distance, as well as the power of thinking in metaphors, have helped me see that I made those experiences even more painful than they needed to be, because I saw them as failures to reproduce the kind of life that I thought success and happiness demanded. For me, teaching English with my boyfriend at the kind of quaint liberal arts college that I loved so much as an undergrad, complete with white picket fence and 2.5 cats. By that standard, which I clung to so fiercely for so many years, my life has indeed been a failure. I'm single, I teach at an institute of technology, for God's sake. And I only have 1 cat. But I also have incredible friends. I'm continually inspired by my students' creativity and brilliance, and my 1 cat is, it has to be said, incredibly cute. The happy and well-lived life can take many more forms than the geometric ideals of a rule book, or the equally unyielding scripts of rom-com screenwriters, or your advisors, or your parents' aspirations for you, or the ones that you draw for yourself. For me, happiness has required hanging on to my ideals, but also being gentle with my failures, and seeing some of them, at least, as creative opportunities. The chance to chart my own path, to cut my own figure. And that's my wish for all of you, that you skate out, fearlessly and joyfully, and when you fail to trace that figure exactly, which you will every day, ask yourself whose diagram and whose rulebook you are following, and consider the possibility that instead of this, you might be carving out something much more interesting, more like one of these. And those, by the way, are figures from the early 20th century when skaters got to design their own shapes. But I could geek out about skating history and judging for a long time, so I'll force myself to stop here. Thanks for listening.